One name. Everything changed. The judge said it. Trump's face transformed instantly, and everyone in that courtroom understood. They just witnessed the moment Trump's defense died. His eyes went wide. His body went rigid. For 4 full seconds, visible shock mixed with pure dread. This wasn't just another witness. This was the person who could end everything. Subscribe right now, because when I reveal who this is and what they know, you'll understand why Trump looked like his worst nightmare just walked into the room. Here's what happened 51 minutes ago. It's 9:34 a.m. in federal court. Judge Michael Patterson is reading the prosecution's witness list for next week. Standard procedure. He's already read through 9 names without incident. Then at 9:37 a.m., he reads the 10th name. Trump's reaction is instantaneous and visceral. His head jerks up from the documents in front of him. His jaw clenches so hard you can see the muscle tension from across the courtroom. His hands, which had been resting casually on the table, suddenly grip the edge with enough force that his knuckles turn white. Lead defense attorney Susan Nichelis immediately leans toward him, whispering urgently. Trump shakes his head sharply, once, twice, clearly agitated. The prosecutor at the podium, noticing the reaction, pauses, looks directly at Trump, then continues reading the witness description, but slower now, emphasizing each word. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, stands abruptly. Your Honor, we need to address this witness immediately in chambers. Judge Patterson's response is measured. You'll have the opportunity to file appropriate motions, Mr. Blanche. For now, we're completing the record. The message is clear. This witness is testifying. Nothing is stopping it, and Trump knows it. Let's talk about who this person is. The name is currently sealed pending witness security arrangements, but I've confirmed the identity through multiple sources with direct knowledge of the case. The person who caused that reaction in Trump, the person whose testimony changes everything. Hope Hicks. Yes, Trump's longtime communications director, someone who worked with Trump since the 2016 campaign, someone who was in the White House during the entire critical period, someone Trump trusted completely. Sources say Hope Hicks has been cooperating with federal prosecutors for approximately 8 months. She's provided over 50 hours of grand jury testimony and has turned over emails, text messages, and contemporaneous notes from her time in the administration. Trump had no idea she flipped until this morning. Here's why this is so devastating. Hope Hicks wasn't just any staffer. She was one of Trump's most trusted advisors. She was in meetings that most staffers never attended. She heard conversations that were supposed to stay private. She witnessed Trump's actual decision-making, process behind closed doors. And sources say she documented everything. Hicks apparently kept detailed notes during her time in the White House, not for official records, but personal documentation she maintained throughout her tenure. Those notes include direct quotes from Trump, descriptions of his reactions when given legal advice, and accounts of conversations about ongoing investigations. Prosecutors have all of it. Let me explain why Hope Hicks specifically is the witness Trump feared most. She worked with Trump for over 6 years. She started on his 2016 campaign as press secretary when she was just 26 years old. She became White House communications director in 2017 at age 28. She left briefly in 2018, then returned as a senior advisor in 2020. During that time, she was present for virtually every significant moment that matters in these cases. The 2016 campaign and potential coordination issues, Hicks was there. The transition period and early administration decisions, Hicks was there. The response to the Russia investigation, Hicks was there. The Access Hollywood tape crisis, Hicks was there. The Stormy Daniels situation, Hicks was there. The impeachment proceedings, Hicks was there. The post-election period in 2020, Hicks was there. She wasn't a peripheral figure. She was in her circle. Trump spoke freely in front of her because he trusted her implicitly. But there's something else that makes Hope Hicks uniquely dangerous as a witness, something that goes beyond just being present for important events. She was Trump's emotional confidant. Not in a personal relationship sense, but in the sense that Trump trusted her judgment in ways he didn't trust most other advisors. When Trump was uncertain or worried, he would often turn to Hicks for perspective. When he was angry or frustrated, she was one of the few people who could calm him down and redirect his focus. This means she saw Trump at his most unguarded. She saw him when he wasn't performing for cameras or managing his public image. She heard what he really thought, what he really feared, what he really intended. Sources say this comes through clearly in her testimony. She doesn't just describe what Trump said in formal meetings. She describes his private reactions, his unscripted comments, his candid assessments when he thought only trusted people were listening. That level of access and intimacy makes her testimony extraordinarily credible and extraordinarily damaging. Moreover, Hope Hicks has a reputation for being honest and straightforward. Even people who disagree with Trump's politics generally regard Hicks as someone with integrity. She's not seen as a political operative or an ideologue. She's seen as a communications professional who was loyal to her boss but also maintained her own standards. When someone with that reputation testifies that Trump knowingly violated legal boundaries, juries believe it. There's also the fact that Hicks is young. She was in her 20s when she started working for Trump, barely 30 when she left the White House. She doesn't have decades of political baggage or controversial positions that defense attorneys can use to attack her credibility. She's simply a witness who was there, who saw things, who documented what she saw, and who is now telling the truth about it under oath. According to sources familiar with her testimony, Hicks can testify about several critical areas. First, Trump's state of mind and knowledge. She heard him discuss legal strategies, respond to attorney advice, and make decisions about how to handle investigations. She can testify to what Trump knew when he knew it and whether he understood the legal implications of his actions. Specific example from sources. In November 2020, Hicks was present for a meeting where White House counsel explicitly warned Trump that continuing to promote certain fraud claims could constitute defamation or fraud. Hicks's notes from that meeting reportedly include Trump's response: "I don't care what the lawyers say, this is what we're doing." That single quote, if she testifies to it, destroys any claim of good faith reliance on counsel. Second, conversations about potential obstruction. Sources say Hicks has knowledge of discussions about witness testimony, document preservation, and responses to subpoenas. She can describe Trump's involvement in coordinating responses in his statements about cooperation with investigators. Hicks was apparently in the room when Trump and his attorneys discussed how to respond to congressional subpoenas in 2019. Sources say she can testify to conversations where Trump asked about ways to delay compliance or limit what had to be turned over. She can also describe Trump's reaction when witnesses began cooperating, including statements about ensuring loyalty from people in his orbit. Third, the Access Hollywood tape response and related matters. Hicks was intimately involved in the response to damaging stories during the 2016 campaign. She can testify about how Trump directed responses, what he said privately versus publicly, and his knowledge of payments made to suppress negative stories. This connects directly to the hush money case in New York. Hicks can describe Trump's awareness of the Stormy Daniels situation, his involvement in crafting the public response, and his knowledge of Michael Cohen's activities. She can testify about meetings where payment arrangements were discussed and Trump's instructions about keeping those payments secret. Sources say Hicks has particularly damaging testimony about an October 2016 meeting where Trump, Michael Cohen, and several campaign advisors discussed how to handle the Daniels story. She can apparently testify that Trump personally directed Cohen to take care of it and to make sure it doesn't come out before the election. That testimony directly contradicts Trump's repeated claims that he knew nothing about the payments and that Cohen acted independently. Fourth, post-election conduct. Hicks was in the White House during the critical period between November 2020 and January 2021. She can describe Trump's statements about election fraud claims, his response when told the claims lacked evidence, and his intentions regarding January 6th events. Sources say Hicks has particularly damaging testimony about Trump's state of mind in the days leading up to January 6th. She can describe conversations where Trump discussed the rally, what he hoped would happen, and his awareness that the crowd might become aggressive or confrontational. According to sources, Hicks can testify about a January 4th conversation where Trump said the crowd on January 6th needed to show strength and that something has to happen to make them take this seriously. She can also testify about Trump's response once violence began, including his resistance to calling it off immediately and his statements about the rioters being patriots who were doing what needed to be done. Fifth, document handling discussions. Though Hicks left the White House before Trump did, sources say she has knowledge about discussions of what materials would be taken to Mar-a-Lago and how they would be stored. She participated in meetings where Trump discussed viewing certain documents as his personal property despite being told they were government records. She can also testify about Trump's general attitude toward document preservation and his pattern of being cavalier about record-keeping requirements, establishing a broader pattern that supports prosecution arguments about intentional retention of classified materials. Now let me explain what prosecutors have obtained from her cooperation. According to sources familiar with her testimony, Hicks provided prosecutors with several categories of evidence: contemporary documentation, her personal notes from key meetings and conversations, time-stamped and detailed. These include direct quotes from Trump and descriptions of his reactions to legal advice. Sources say she has notes from over 200 significant meetings spanning 2016 through 2020, electronic communications, emails, and text messages from her time time on the campaign and in the White House. Some of these contradict public statements made by Trump or his representatives. Prosecutors apparently have emails where Hicks warned colleagues about legal risks of certain actions and where she documented Trump's instructions despite those warnings. Grand jury testimony. Over 50 hours of sworn testimony covering the entire span of her time with Trump. Sources say prosecutors found her testimony highly credible and well corroborated by other evidence. She was apparently composed, detailed, and careful not to overstate what she knew while being completely forthcoming about what she witnessed. Witness corroboration. Hicks can authenticate documents and communications from other witnesses, strengthening the prosecution's overall case. She can confirm when meetings occurred, who was present, what topics were discussed, and what Trump's reactions were. This fills in gaps and validates other witness accounts. The combination is devastating for Trump's defense. Here's why Trump's primary defense strategy crumbles with Hope Hicks's testimony. Trump's defense across multiple cases has been to claim good faith, that he believed his actions were legal, that he relied on advice of counsel, that he lacked criminal intent. Hicks's testimony destroys this defense systematically. If she testifies that Trump was explicitly warned certain actions were illegal and he acknowledged understanding but proceeded anyway, that proves criminal intent. If she testifies to conversations where Trump discussed how to avoid legal consequences or coordinate witness statements, that proves consciousness of guilt. If she provides Trump's own words showing he understood legal boundaries and chose to violate them, no amount of cross-examination can undo that damage. Moreover, Hope Hicks solves a major problem prosecutors typically face with insider witnesses: credibility. Usually, when prosecutors flip someone from a defendant's inner circle, defense attorneys can attack that witness as biased, vengeful, or self-serving. They can argue the witness is lying to save themselves or get revenge. That doesn't work with Hope Hicks. She was Trump's hand-picked communications director, someone he praised publicly, someone he trusted with his most sensitive communications. There's no pre-existing animosity or grudge that defense can point to. She also tried to protect Trump initially. She asserted executive privilege. She resisted testifying. She only cooperated after being presented with overwhelming evidence that included her own emails and messages, and after being told she faced potential obstruction charges herself. This makes her a reluctant witness whose testimony will carry enormous weight with a jury. She's not someone who wanted to testify against Trump. She's someone who was forced to choose between protecting Trump and protecting herself, and who ultimately decided to tell the truth. That reluctance actually enhances her credibility. Now let me explain what Trump's legal team is facing. Defense attorneys are in an impossible position with Hope Hicks. They can't attack her credibility. She was Trump's trusted advisor for 6 years. They can't claim she's biased against Trump. She worked loyally for him and only cooperated when facing her own charges. They can't suggest she misunderstood or misremembered. Her testimony is supported by contemporaneous notes and corroborating evidence. They can't argue she wasn't in a position to know she was literally in the room for the most sensitive conversations. They can't dismiss her as a low-level staffer or peripheral figure. She was senior White House staff with direct access to Trump. Their only strategy is to minimize the importance of what she's saying. Try to argue that even if Trump said what Hicks claims, it doesn't prove criminal intent or illegal conduct. But that's extraordinarily difficult when the witness is providing Trump's own words, acknowledging legal risks, and proceeding anyway. Sources say Trump's legal team held an emergency meeting within an hour of Hicks's name being revealed. They're now scrambling to develop a cross-examination strategy, but they face fundamental challenges that have no good solutions. Do they go aggressive and try to attack her? Character that risks alienating the jury and making Trump look desperate? Do they go soft and just try to poke holes in minor details that allows devastating testimony to stand largely unchallenged? Do they try to suggest she was coerced by prosecutors? That requires evidence they don't have and risks looking like a conspiracy theory. There's no good option. Hope Hicks is the witness every defense attorney dreads, credible, well-demented, and impossible to discredit. So what happens next? According to sources familiar with the court schedule, Hope Hicks is expected to testify next week. Her testimony is anticipated to last 2 full days. 1 day of direct examination by prosecutors, 1 day of cross-examination by defense attorneys. Prosecutors apparently plan to walk her through a chronological account of key events, using her testimony to authenticate documents and tie together other witness accounts. They'll start with her background and relationship with Trump to establish her credibility and access, then move through the critical time periods methodically. The direct examination will likely include displays of her contemporaneous notes, emails, and messages to corroborate her testimony in real time. Jurors will see Trump's own words in Hicks's handwriting or in emails she preserved. Defense attorneys will try to undermine her credibility during cross-examination, but sources say they face significant challenges. Hicks's testimony is well documented, corroborated by physical evidence and delivered by a witness with no obvious motivation to lie. They'll probably try to suggest her memory is faulty after several years, but prosecutors can simply point to her detailed notes from the time. They'll try to suggest she's interpreting Trump's statements unfavorably, but prosecutors can point to direct quotes. They'll try to minimize the importance of specific statements, but prosecutors can show how those statements fit into broader patterns. Cross-examination might actually reinforce the prosecution's case rather than weaken it. Beyond this specific case, Hicks's cooperation has broader implications. State prosecutors in Georgia and New York are watching closely. Her testimony about Trump's conduct could be relevant to their cases as well, particularly regarding the Stormy Daniels payments and the broader pattern of Trump's awareness of legal boundaries. Civil litigation involving Trump will likely seek to use her testimony or at least reference it in their proceedings. Her accounts of Trump's state of mind and knowledge will be cited as evidence in defamation suits, fraud allegations, and other civil matters. And politically, the image of Trump's longtime loyal advisor testifying against him sends a powerful message. The walls are closing in, and even the most loyal insiders are protecting themselves rather than going down with Trump. Republican donors and party officials are reportedly discussing privately whether Trump remains viable as a candidate when his own trusted advisors are testifying to his criminal conduct. The calculation is changing. Loyalty to Trump increasingly looks like a path to legal jeopardy rather than political success. Some Republican strategists are apparently urging the party to create distance from Trump now before more damaging testimony emerges. But others argue that abandoning Trump risks alienating his base and fracturing the party. It's a no-win situation created by Trump's own conduct and now exposed by his own former advisors. Let me bring this back to that moment, 51 minutes ago, when Judge Patterson read Hope Hicks's name. Trump's reaction told everyone in that courtroom what they needed to know. He wasn't surprised that someone from his inner circle had flipped. He'd suspected that for months.